Hello everybody, welcome to this extra special version of Sonic Talk. It's a pre-recorded version. If you were here looking for the live stream, it's not here, but we're doing a kind of pre-recorded insert. I don't know if you know, but if you've been listening to previous versions of Sonic Talk, Mark Tinley, a regular contributor, a regular guest on the show, been here with us for a number of years actually, has just had a project that he was involved in released, which is TV Mania, and it was a collaborative effort. It was something that was done, as far as I know, back in the day that has been rediscovered. I'll let perhaps him talk about it. But what we've also got is an additional guest. But I'll introduce our guest first. Obviously, we'll come to you first, Mark. Mr. Tinley, good to have you aboard again. Thanks for joining us again today. I know it feels only like yesterday that we spoke. How are you?
It does, doesn't it? I don't know why. It feels almost identical to yesterday as well. I got my computer's all in the same place. I could almost be in a time warp.
It's almost so identical that I had to remember to change my shirt because I was wearing something similar. Anyway, thanks. Mark, of course, likebeing.com, programmer, sound artist, and creative thinker. But we also have another guest in the form of Anthony J. Resta, who is in Boston. Is that right, Anthony?
At the moment, yes.
And do I detect? You look like you're in some kind of studio environment there.
Yeah, this is Bopnik Musique. It's a audio playground. It's like a museum. People tell me I should charge admission. It's crazy here.
I did see that you are a collector of. I think I've got a shot here. Actually, if I switch to this, yeah. I managed to bring your website up, and it's like a sort of beautiful tea loft of some kind.
Yeah, it's big. It's an old mill. It's got like brick and beam, and it's been here since like the 1912 or something.
It's absolutely beautiful looking.
Thank you.
I should probably come back and say the reason that you're here, apart from being a generally interesting chap, is to talk to us about your involvement in the project as well. Because obviously, TV Mania Music, let's just kind of get the facts straight. It's TV Mania. The album is called, now I've got to get my other notes up. Got too many windows open. Is called Board of Prozac and the Internet.
That's correct.
And it was originally kind of artistically, I guess the headline acts, within the group are Warren Cucarullo and Nick Rhodes, right? So would they be the artists and you guys are more the technical, or is that a bit unfair putting it that way?
Well, I mean, the record making process is always, it's like they say there's two things you should know about, how to make sausages and how to make records.
Or how to make tea, yeah.
No, they're Nick and Warren, it was their brainchild, and Tinley helped them launch the foundation of it. And, and then, they came to me at the time for doing post-production and mixing. So basically my friend and partner at that time, Bob St. John, and I spent a lot of time transferring everything to analog tape. But before that process, I spent 6 weeks working on it in my loft space here, just in sweetening things, adding little transitions and things like that.
Okay.
But the foundation was done before it got here.
But I guess the interesting thing, there is a sort of story to this, because, I mean, you may listen to it now and it sounds kind of pretty contemporary, but in fact, it started life way back. Mark, do you have the full skinny on this?
Well, the project probably started life in November of 1995, and it was something that Nick and Warren had been watching this fashion TV program, and they'd started to get a sense that some of these, well, I think Warren particularly, had started to get a sense that some of the voices he was hearing were really musical. But a few weeks prior to that, we'd been working on the Midazoland album. And we were trying to get some loop together for the song Midazoland, and I kept coming in with all these different weird things that I'd sampled off the TV and trying to make them fit into the Midazoland track. So I'd sampled this little Indian man saying he grabbed the sun from the news because I was watching something about the solar eclipse in India, and we'd made this loop. And then I think that, there's just these different kind of elements came together in that space, and either Warren or Nick turned around and said, hang on a minute, let's start making a record out of TV samples, and all of these loops that we'd set aside from the Midazoland song.
I've got this. Is He Grabbed the Sun coming up here?
Yeah, exactly.
This is track 8 off the album, in case you're interested. I'll fade it back out again, just to add a little bit of extra spice.
That's nice.
Something quite noticeable about the TV Mania album, and that's that lots of the songs on the album are the same tempo as the song Midazoland, as the title song Midazoland on the Duran Duran album, because these are all things that got set aside that didn't work with Midazoland, and we started to stockpile this little kind of thing of loops and stuff, and then Warren had me sample like a ton of stuff off Fashion TV and laid it all out on keys. And then there's a woman called Diana Deutsch, although I didn't know anything about her at the time, but she talks about this kind of effect that happens. She's a cognitive psychologist, and she says if you listen to dialogue for long enough, eventually your voice starts to hear it as music. But I think Warren just does this process a lot quicker than everybody else. So he was sort of hearing musical things in samples and then playing them in and like kind of creating all these different kind of musical things. The weird thing about this album is the more times you listen to this album, the more your brain decodes the dialogue and turns it into
that is
musical.
Absolutely true, because I've listened to it 3 times now, and the third time, each time I listen to it, it becomes more and more, because initially when you listen to dialogue, it's like, I also, it reminds me a little bit of my life in the Bush of Ghosts, that kind of vibe where you're sort of throwing in the dialogue, and there's almost a narrative, but the narrative isn't quite as lengthy in these tracks as perhaps in the Bush of Ghosts. They took the Jezebel speech and all those kind of things, but it's a very similar kind of concept. Was there any conscious decision to make it like that necessarily?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that had even occurred to anybody at the time, but it was very much, Nick came up with this whole story, so it was very much about creating something that wrapped around Nick's script. So he came in one day with about 40 pages of script and said, right, this is the story, this is what happens, and then it was all sort of like created around that story.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's actually got a narrative.
It did have a script, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It didn't have an actual narrative, but it does have it has a scripted outline of a storyline, like what happens. So the dialogue's not there yet, but the storyline is.
Right, Anthony, go.
Nick originally envisioned it as possibly a Broadway play where, this could all play out as a full length, like a story.
Okay.
Like
there must be there must be about 70 songs somewhere, but I don't know where they are.
So what is the story of this? How come it's taken till now to see the light of day? Is it just one of those things that's been on the back burner, or is there another story going on?
Well, there's a bunch of things. The studio that we did the mixing at went under, and they disappeared. And like some of the analog masters, the 2-inch masters, have never been found. So there's that. So. And then there was various things floating around for ages, and I guess Metropolis misplaced a bunch of stuff, possibly. I don't know. It's a long story, convoluted.
Well, there's another chunk of that in that Andy Taylor rejoined Duran Duran in 2000, and Warren moved back to Los Angeles. And in the move back to Los Angeles, I think lots of master tapes went into storage, and just basically some of those I think have disappeared, or. They're probably underneath the bloody backdrop from that year's tour or something. God knows where things are,
Oh, there's lots of stories, aren't there, about stuff that gets put in lockups and then forgotten about and rediscovered years later, always finding kind of mellotrons and stuff, So, I'm sure it must be the same, particularly with, Duran were doing kind of big tours, so there must be huge amounts of stuff just in garages or, the musical equivalent of that kind of thing. Going on. So, Anthony, your role within the project was more sort of. So you were at the mix stage, right? So a lot of those samples, where did they come? Were they sort of triggered? Were they triggered in or spun in, or was it put to tape?
Before the mix stage, I spent 6 weeks doing post production. So I'm a co-producer on the record. I did a lot of like percussion and just sound design, like Tinley. Adding backdrops to things, working a lot with the Roland sound space, putting things in like sort of 3D spaces. That's one of the things you wanted me to talk
So you were
about.
using RSS back then?
Yeah.
And who would know that RSS would then end up becoming a news feed? It's kind of bizarre, isn't it? That kind of acronym.
I know that is
Oh
funny.
yeah.
What was it about the RSS? Because there was a whole load of stuff, through the sort of late
Q-Sound.
80s and 90s where people were trying to get this 3D thing going. And what was it about RSS that made that, you choose it?
It's just a magical box. I mean, I just actually got one recently. They're hard to find. They were like $40,000 when they first came out, and now I got mine for like $2,000. It just came up quick on eBay, and I grabbed it. But it's 8 outputs. It's 2 in and 8 outs, and there's these little dials that you play with the axis of it's almost like the concept of like when you have a styrofoam head, a sphere with a binaural. It's like trying to emulate that, but like in the stereo field. It's all done with crazy weird phase stuff, and it's a funny story. We used it a lot on Midazoland, the track Midazoland as well. And Nick told me one time that he was doing a radio interview in Scotland or something on a mono station. He said, "Anthony, it was an instrumental." He said the vocals were gone.
Yeah.
I'm desperately trying to find a picture of RSS. I do remember it, the system. It almost looked a bit like a set of... They had dials with red outer...
Eight dials.
But also a huge rack of stuff.
Three 2-space racks.
Yeah.
Spaces that go with it. And it's a strange box. I mean, it works really well, I think, on speech. There's, sometimes, certain musical things that can get smeared and phasey. But with speech, it tends to put a lot of the spoken parts outside the boundaries of the speakers. Sometimes they appear to be coming from up behind you. And if you'll notice that in certain environments, especially in a car, you can really hear it in a car.
Oh, that's interesting. Because that was always the problem with those systems, wasn't it? It never sounded the same.
It sounded different.
Wherever you were listening to it on, which is obviously a bit more tricky. I suppose
headphones are different altogether as well. So it was kind of a bit of a Russian roulette going with that,
So, out of interest, what did you mix on? I mean, what was the mix system you were using?
We mixed on an SSL. We transferred everything to analog tape, and we locked up two Studer A820s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back in those days. So there was always time to have a sip of tea or roll a cigarette or something in between rewinding the tape.
Machines chase each other.
Did you have a 16-track Pro Tools system, Anthony?
At that point, I had not. I was doing everything, on the fly. I was using Akai sequencers. Akai samplers with my bits chopped up and running Vision. If you remember Vision, opcode Vision, I was using that as a sequencer, and I loved it. I loved Vision.
Because I remember when we laid the tracks down, I had 4 tracks of digital audio, and everything we did was recorded in the computer first and played around with and edited. And after we played around with it and edited it, then we printed it, then I muted that track, and then I moved on to the next kind of block of 4 on the sequencer. Because when I load those sessions up, they're Logic sessions, when I load them up, everything's there, but it's all kind of in really weird, it's all assigned to outputs 1 to 4, because that was all I had.
Yeah.
But it's assigned in really weird ways, and then half the plugins kind of don't work because
they're the wrong side of us.
Take them off so that I could put different plugins on for other tracks and stuff.
Well, we had tempos and SMPTE start times because I was using SMPTE to lock up all my stuff.
Oh, right.
And it all locked perfectly. Tinley's an expert at synchronization. It's never been a problem with anything except for maybe Electric Barbarella. That wasn't your fault. That was a mess.
I'm detecting there's some kind of story there.
Oh yeah, that's a very funny story.
Well, if there's time, feel free to. That was a Duran track, wasn't
it? I've been in situations like this in studios, not so much anymore. Those days seem to be over. But we used to have the Atari. I forget what it was called, but it was like the universal
ST
problem solver. Yeah. And there back then we would be like syncing up analog machines to the Sony 3348, and just there's the word bits were like 256 for Sony and this and that for this and that.
When you said Atari, I thought you meant Atari. You mean Otari?
Atari.
Was it a Zeta 3 by any chance?
Yeah, it might have been that. No, it was bigger than that. It was a something 024. It was like a universal slave driver or something. And we just would get into all kinds of weird problems, and then offsets just wouldn't make sense. And then sometimes there'd be string parts that were drop frame, and then you got two different kinds of symptoms.
Man.
Just, I mean, we used to spend days just.
I can't imagine.
We had a TV show called Sync TV, and it could just be people watching us wring our hand. It's like,
That's funny, isn't it? When you kind of revisit stuff. I mean, that's the thing about this. I mean, this come out. It's got it's well. What are we talking? We're talking, nearly 18 years since it was initially kind of conceived, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's got a very, to me, it had a very sort of strong flavour of, like I say, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, but also The Orb, that kind of blue room sort of atmospheric, kind of slightly random atmosphere with kind of quotes sort of dropping in. And that was kind of interesting. I'll tell you a funny story, though, because I'm listening to this on Spotify. And so, Spotify, I have the ad-supported version. And there's currently an ad campaign for drunk driving. And the quote is, a chap is on the phone and he's saying, he's basically talking about his feelings at the time. And it keeps coming on halfway in between tracks on this album. And it sounds very much like part of the record. It's a really bizarre, and that's the funny thing with the ads in Spotify sort of become merged with the content because of the way that all of that's working. Tell me one thing, that there's track Euphoria. Let me play a little bit of it because I think it's got a very interesting sound that I would like to see if we can get in. Let me see if I turn this up. It's got a long introduction. Maybe if I... You got some filtering on the drums there. Sounds a bit like one of those filter queens or something. But the vocal has a really unusual quality. It's like sort of munchkinized, but in a kind of very stylized way. Let's see if it comes in before Absent. Hopefully YouTube won't copyright our asses on this either, because sometimes they have the copyright recognition stuff. So if I talk over the most of it, then it'll have trouble recognizing it, because this is essentially reportage, so I figure it's fair. Right, so I think it comes in a sec. It feels like we're about to hit a point. Great bass on this as well, sort of almost fretless kind of.
Random joy,
This.
expensive toy, you captivate my mind. I never answer telephones, don't like to leave my screen alone.
That's a really interesting sound, I thought, of the vocal. Do you know what that was?
Yeah, it's a Digitech studio vocalist.
Oh, what, the red thing?
No, the green 2U rack thing. But that's Nick's girlfriend, and she can't really sing. So she came and she could do it in time, but she couldn't do it in tune. So I basically vocoded her using the Digitech vocalist and then played the notes. And then it did take a very long time to fix and make it sound like that. And she won't be upset that I'm saying that.
How are we to know that like every app like Songify and all these things that the teenagers do, they speak into it and it turns into a Kanye West song immediately? I mean, who knew back then that was going to be like the way pop music.
No. Well,
That's
I think
really interesting.
I've done her go with the vocalist at that point, actually, but maybe she hadn't. Maybe this was slightly before that.
It's a great sound. I enjoy the sound of it. Her voice. You did a great job.
What's it called? A Digitech Studio
vocalist. I still got one in the rack. I haven't turned it on for about 8 years, but it's
green.
I'm going to see if I can find a picture, because I think this is exactly the sort of thing. Images for studio vocalist. Here it comes.
Probably about $50 on eBay at this point.
Yeah, but it's got a really interesting sound to it.
It does. It's got a lot of features.
Oh man, I can't find it now.
I mean, we did use that a lot, and Warren used to sing into it and then play the keyboard at the same time as he was singing, and could like get it to do some. I mean, that was more with the Duran stuff, because Simon.
Yeah.
Here it is. It's there. It's a sort of green. Is that it there? That looks about right. Studio Tech vocalist.
Digitech, yeah.
Digitech studio vocalist. So just get me straight. So you could play the notes in on a MIDI keyboard that would then it would then jump.
It would just.
And it has styles. It would have styles. You would go into programs that would have, major sixth up, minor third down. There's all these programs that could do various different types of harmony.
Oh, that sounds great. I just really like the sound. And was that vocal have been processed for the RSS? Because it's got a real ethereal, sort of weirdly, it's slightly uncomfortable, almost phase-like kind of quality.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm sure. I mean, we were using a lot of things on vocals. Like, I was a big fan of the Lexicon Vortex at the time, and a lot of people thought it was a piece of crap. But I used to really enjoy using that on vocals.
What did that do? That rings a bell.
It was a load of crap.
What did the Lexicon Vortex do?
It was
it was like effects would morph into each other. So you'd have like an effect called, say, orbital, and then you'd have an effect called centrifuge.
Right.
And centrifuge would be a sort of a spinning thing, and there's a lot of different parameters you could dial in for as far as the speed of the morph from one sound to another. So you could make something turn from an orbital into centrifuge over X amount of bars, and then you could, it was a pretty advanced piece of gear.
I've never really thought it did that, but
oh, it did.
It just seemed like it basically, if you had like a whole load of faders for your like reverb and your delay and maybe the reverb time and the delay time and the modulation, it just kind of changed the mix from one effect to another effect. It never really seemed to morph.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to play with it a lot. I mean, I got to do a lot of really interesting things by,
Really?
There was I remember orbital and centrifuge being the two that I use the most, and there are a lot of parameters like in there that, you can play with as far as attack, and I haven't used that in years either. I don't even remember what the menus do. I have two of them sitting over in the rack over there. I haven't turned them on in 10 years.
Well, that's interesting. You've got you keep kind of reminiscing about this stuff and kind of saying how great.
I keep everything. I'm a pack rat.
How great it is. But so what? Yes, it says in the Boponique sort of blurb that it's like a treasure trove of vintage stuff. I mean, is that the kind of vintage stuff you got, or what's the kind of range of stuff that you tend to hang on to?
I mean, I've got over 50 guitars from the from the 50s and 60s, and a lot of vintage amps, a lot of vintage mic pre's, and I can give you a walkthrough maybe at the end. I'll just walk through with my
that'd be awesome. Yeah,
laptop. You could see some stuff.
That'd be great. Yeah, fantastic.
Just the gamut. Nick got me into the stylophones. I have about half a dozen of those, and the Omnichord. Remember that one, Tinley?
Yeah, really lovely shimmery.
There's a lot of that on the TV Mania, and whatever you guys did to process it made it very unique. It's like I don't hear it and go, oh, Omnichord. It's like they always.
Everything on that album was processed through. Well, most of it went through an AKS Synthi and an H3000.
Yeah.
So the K2000 was literally permanently plugged into the audio inputs of the AKS Synthi.
Yeah.
And then that ran in through the H3000, and there were loads of impedance mismatches there, so God knows what
that's a great. So you basically monoized the hell out of it, and then stereoized the hell out of it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, things were coming out the H3000 and going into foot pedals, and then back into the. So I was coming from like +4 studio level down to sort of -20 foot pedal guitar line level, and then out of that, and then back into the rack. And I had all these wires twisted together on the floor.
Good man. That's the way it should be. It's interesting.
But, I mean, if you want to plug something into something else, and Nick had said, well, what would happen if we put that through there? I'm like, I don't know, let's find out. And then I just kind of connect it up and try it. And so there was a lot of that going on. I mean, there's a good chance that those drums with the slight sound, if that was, because I did that to quite a few things. So if that was anything to do with me, which it may or may not have been.
I think that one particularly was, actually, because I remember that being part. I added some other break beats to that track. There's like an old, like 60s, like Motown kind of thing going on that's underneath it with that kind of like a crappy, like Motown kind of kick, like underneath it. We would layer tons of loops. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was the 90s, man. That's what you did.
With the H3, with the K2000 filters. So animating the filters in the K2000 to get it to do different things. But a lot of that, again, it's all fed through the AKS.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting. I didn't realise that that would have... I mean, there is a definite sound to that instrument which will kind of... it limits the bandwidth of things. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Going back to the H3000, the Eventide H3000, I mean, that was the effect of that whole decade, probably, wasn't it? I mean, there were all different versions of it, and I remember I occasionally do the live sound for bands that would bring those along, and I had to put it in the rack, and they'd go, "Yeah, we need this on this vocal," and it was the sound of the century, not the sound of the century, the sound of that decade.
The decade. Absolutely.
Was it the same in the States? Because that was very much.
Yeah, well, at that time I was using a DSP 4000, I think, had come out, and there was a patch on there called Echo Space of God, which is a mixture of different multi-tap delays and reverbs, and I still use it to this day in my stereo guitar effects. It's just a great. I mean, I basically have the box for I probably use about 5 presets in the whole thing.
I'm just looking for images of the H3000 just for a bit of nostalgia.
It took me years to get into the H3000 because I couldn't get it to do that kind of cheap, gritty reverb that I was
No,
used
that's
to
the
in
problem.
quadriverbs
For all
and
of
things.
us that were brought up on 12-bit samplers and MIDI verb 2s,
It
you
was a
put
bit
one of those in
rough,
front, it's like,
yeah.
oh no, I can't hear it properly. It's too light.
Yeah.
But it
But
was
when
very
when
radical
I
as well.
eventually got into it, though, my favourite thing's the infinite reverb thing, and that's probably all over that Euphoria voice. I had a thing in there called Tinley's Hold or something like that, which was we basically fed things into it and then pressed the button, and then it just went on forever. And I could have gone home for the weekend, come back on Monday morning, and it still would have been going, oh.
It's like the Quantec Room Simulator was a similar thing, had a freeze function, didn't it? It was like that kind of
We have
obscure
those as well,
Australian DSP thing, and that was used a lot by people like Kate Bush and Gabriel and stuff. That just had that kind of freeze. And I did see they re-released it quite recently, and I remember it used to be quite a big unit, yeah. And now I see it now, and it's like sort of this deep, and it's still got the front panel, but it's all obviously
It's a plug-in.
it's probably done in DSP
Probably a
rather
plug-in.
than. No, it was definitely QRS was definitely as a. I remember seeing it at Music Messa maybe a couple of years ago. I'm thinking, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, no, I've heurt of them. I've never played with it, but I know it's a high-end piece.
It was quadraphonic. It was it had a four outputs. So I mean, quadraphonic.
Yeah.
That seems so last century. Now it's 5.1, isn't it? So it's
Had nice
not quite
buttons as well.
surround, but kind of
Sometimes the form factor's important. I mean, it had nice big square buttons on it, I seem to remember. And I seem to remember it was kind of a reddy brown anodized. A bit
All
like
right,
my
I'm gonna have to find a picture of that now. You're gonna have to keep talking
Yeah.
while I
have
search
to
the internet.
Stack them up, yeah.
Quantec Room Simulator, I think was it. Yeah, let's see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there it is. Right, Quantec Room Simulator, right there. Let's see if we can zoom a couple of these in. There you go. That's it right there. Does that ring any bells? Doesn't it look?
I'm not seeing it, so.
Oh, you're not. Are you not seeing any video or?
No, I mean I see you guys, but I don't see any extra stuff that you put up.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. But there, yeah, that's it. Anyway,
Oh.
so it's funny now. Obviously, this project basically just the master tapes came to light. They remastered them and released them. For whatever reason. What now? Listening back to it, do you kind of there must have been a temptation to kind of go, oh, you know what, we could just sort of do this, or
Well, it wouldn't be
kick drums have come
Yeah.
on since then. We could have added a bit more of this or that or whatever.
It wouldn't be a period piece then, though, would it?
No,
so
that's
that's
true.
kind of like why I think one of the decisions was to let it be the art that we created. There's a lot of live instruments on it too. I played a lot of live drums on songs like "People Know Your Name." What's the other one? "You're Dreamin' Pal." Like all those drums I recorded in this big room. It's got a very ambient
Oh yeah, there's some
sound.
great drum fills in that. Is that
I
you then?
love those drum
That's
fills.
me. Yeah, I did all that stuff.
Here's a little bit. If I fade a little bit up, this is called "Your Dreaming Pal." Obviously taken from another quote somewhere. That's the one. That's you, is it? That's your room toms.
Yeah, you can hear the sound of the big room.
Is that here behind you? The
Yeah.
space behind you? Oh
Exactly.
wow, cool. That's a great sound. I mean, that's a very, dare I say it, it's got that kind of classic sort of Phil Collins room sound, but really
yeah.
sort of.
Ah!
Sorry about that. I know Mark has an aversion to that. But...
I don't think Nick would like it if you said
No,
Phil
but it's got
Collins.
it has a sound that has a place, and that
It's
there's
like
something
sort of a gated room compressed.
exactly. But
gated room.
I love that kind of thing. That's very brash, and it's got it
Yeah.
makes a really bold kind of
And very few mics. A lot of times I would use the drums are mono, so it would be maybe 2 or 3 mics, and it was rarely stereo. I'm a big fan of mono drums even to this day.
So
Yeah, me too.
you were saying that you record, you've got all this vintage stuff. I mean, do you use vintage recording techniques there as well? I mean, how do you kind of utilize a lot of this stuff?
I suppose so. I mean, really. I mean, I've been doing it over 20 years, and I've got a guy that I've been working with now, since for about 17 years, almost from back to and we work kind of hand in hand. Our jobs overlap, and we share information and stuff. So we do tons of different things. We like to experiment. I love the Tom Waits records where you stick a mic into a tin, trash bucket and put a little amplifier in there, and
isn't that Chad Blake does a lot of that stuff?
Yeah,
doesn't he?
we love that stuff, and we're always experimenting. You get bored when we're here 6 days a week. We try to, amuse ourselves. So
I know. I'm going to try this. You go down to the bottom of the stairs, and I'll drop a ping pong ball.
we've thrown guitars down the stairs. That's a good one.
Oh, right.
Just a cheap one though, like a Sears guitar, like a $49 one. And you took duct tape and you tape the to the cable real tight, and then you set up some microphones on the stairs, and you get it feeding back, and then you turn one of the strings until it breaks, and then just throw it down the stairs. It's a phenomenal sound. I've only done that once, but it was great.
I suppose the thing about that is also, I mean, it's very easy with everything in the box to kind of just not push that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a real Rhodes and a real Hammond C3 are never. They're getting better with all this software and everything, but to me, like, there's something about stuff that's real, that sounds real, and that's what I've kind of built my whole thing on. Although I've changed. I mean, I love plugins now, and I love a lot of the soft synths, and stuff. And I think they've come full circle. But I still like to mix up real and unreal stuff.
So what do you do from a mix point of view there? Do you mixing sort of in the box but with external hardware to kind of...
Oh, no, we use the Dangerous 2. We have 16 channels of that. And
is that like a summing?
We use a lot of hardware, like on our mixes. We've got a lot of... I can give you a little tour, but, back then we were mixing on an SSL console. Now we just use the Dangerous 2 stuff with Pro Control.
Ah, okay. So it's all the kind of tools scenario. And just out of interest, where do you stand on the upgrading Pro Tools? Where are you? What version are you running?
We're just now moving up to 10. I'm using 8.5. I've got 4 different systems in here. So I've got the gamut, but 10. We're actually in the process of upgrading to 10 now on the main rig.
Ah, okay.
I've been very slow with it because you get things working so well, and everything's just cruising along, and I've been putting it off for a while.
Yeah, I mean, and unless you really need what it's got to offer.
How are you going to get around this whole change of plugins, though?
Well, I don't think I'm going that far with the AXX thing or whatever that is. I'm going to stop just at 10, and for at least a couple more years.
Right.
And that'll be fine. I mean, we do everything at 48, and I've been talking to a lot of engineers and producers about going to 96, and it seems like for all the amount of space you take and everything, and it ends up getting dithered back down to 16-bit at the end. I guess the gain is not all that exciting, I mean, but I'd like to hear it,
Yeah, well, as we've said before, and then you're walking down the street and you hear someone listening to it out of a kind of speaker on
an
a mobile
earbuds,
phone, and you're like,
crappy earbuds.
Yeah, I suppose so. But going back to the TV Mania thing, I mean, now it's sort of come back out and you're listening again. Do you find that it kind of sets loose a few memories and kind of things of the time that had?
God, yeah. I mean, it's like it brings back the whole period, really, doesn't it, Tinley? Just the whole everything.
I can smell the hotel I was staying in.
Exactly.
I can. When I hear those songs, I can actually. And no, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go to one evening, right? Nick and I are in Warren's house. Warren's gone out somewhere, and we've got the Jupiter 4 going, and it's doing this beautiful arpeggio thing. And then we found this sample of a child saying, "What's in the future?" which we sampled off the TV, and we had that kind of and this loop and this thing going round. And I walked to Warren's back door where he had that kind of security grill across the back of the house. And I looked out, and it was snowing, and it's like London. It's never dark in London. There was just that orange kind of sky. So I'm looking at this orange sky and these snowflakes falling into Warren's garden, and there's a layer of snow in his garden, which is unusual for London as well, and this music playing in the background, this magical kind of thing with this child, and I was transported away somewhere. I was just like, wow, what is in the future? And I guess the album.
Here we are.
Here you are. Now you know. That question has been answered today.
Yes.
No, I love that piece. I had a lot of fun with that. I put some lap steel on that. There's all kinds of weird sounds in there, little tinkling bells and analog beatboxes, and that's one of my favorites, Tinley. Actually, I think that Jupiter sound is
it's my absolute favorite.
You say so? Was it like a remote gig? So you got the tapes and you transferred and you mixed there. Were you working remotely effectively, or were there?
I was in the States, and basically they sent me the tapes that they had, and then I spent about 6 weeks working in my underwear playing bongos and stuff, in my spare time.
So how because that's interesting, because now, obviously we can FTP a track or however we want to do it.
Oh, we did ISDN back then. That was atrocious.
Yeah, I remember having to do that a few times.
We almost got
like
fired a
6
couple of
phone
times.
lines at once, wasn't it?
Oh my God. I almost got fired a couple of times because they were getting joint stereo instead of like discrete stereo, and it just like turned into a smeared mess, and they're like, well, we wanted marmalade and you gave us chocolate fudge.
Actually, that reminds me, ISDN, we used to go out to Real World when we'd had a mix and somebody needed to hear it real fast. We'd take a DAT out and we'd sit in a room and they'd play it down the phone, on the phone, said, yeah, you get that? Okay, thank you, click. And then there'd be a phone call, an hour later, and whoever it was had heard it, and you'd get the notes. But it was amazingly expensive. I remember there was a special ISDN room. Lots of studios had them, didn't they? I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, and it was very expensive.
Yeah.
Well, it took 6 phone lines because ISDN's 128 kbps, so you need to multiply that by 6 just to get the bandwidth.
But it had special codecs in it as well. God, that takes me back. I actually remember having an ISDN line when we started Sonic, but it was so expensive that we only turned it on like really, really occasionally.
When you had to.
It's just bizarre, though, isn't it? I mean, I was thinking I bought an iPad. Well, I didn't buy an iPad Mini. I got one for my birthday, but I bought one of the little chips that goes in it. The SIM card.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got 1 gigabyte of data a month. I wonder if that'll be enough. But I mean, it's such an astronomical amount of data compared to what we were dealing with then. I mean,
my gosh, I know.
A gigabyte. I'm kind of considering, I wonder. But all this media flying about now, we're kind of, our audio stuff. What would have been a big amount.
32 megs of RAM was like,
yeah.
Oh my God, you have 32 megs of RAM? I mean, my God.
Yeah. So, what's the process with this? Obviously, it came out on earlier in March. How's it going? I mean, I'm guessing it's available on
iTunes. They sold out of the 200.
They did limited edition ones.
Box sets like instantly.
I'm still waiting for mine.
Oh, we don't get those.
I said I wanted one.
Well,
they were gone before we had a chance. But I did get a gatefold vinyl. I think I'm supposed to get a gatefold vinyl.
So, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, I mean, if it comes out, let's just kind of postulate on the possibility. Say it becomes a massive worldwide hit, or it gets a huge sync in a movie or whatever, and then work comes of it, because that's the way these things work. Yet it's work that you would be hired for something you did 20 years ago. It's kind of a strange dynamic. I wonder if that's how that would work. I mean, would you feel that you could go back and apply some of those techniques and whatever, or would you kind of be who you are now?
I think it'd probably be who we are now and just take where we've evolved to and see what happens now. But I still every now and then fire up my old Akai samplers, and they have a certain grittiness that I really like. And they're fun.
I've been speaking to a lot of people actually. What they've been doing is they've been putting SD card adapters in them. So you get the sound and you get all of that stuff, and you can load the entire library really fast. So you get the Akai-ness, but you don't get the kind of sitting there for saving and loading programs and all of that ridiculously. That's an interesting.
That was the tough part.
That's an interesting idea, and that's happening with a lot of samplers. A lot of old samplers. I was speaking to a chap, Dan Wilson, actually from Hideaway Studios, the guy who's got the Nova Chord. He's got a bunch of old 80s and 90s samplers that he's just put SD card adapters in, so that you can just have like the entire library on one. And
that's cool. That's really
great
cool.
idea, isn't it?
Very cool.
So,
my answer to that question is I think I still make music pretty much the same way as I was making it then. So anything that or lots of things that I do sound like TV Mania inadvertently, and I quite often make tracks that have that kind of feel to them. Yeah. So hire me. If you want that sound. I'll send it to Anthony to produce.
It'd be nice to have the whole gang back together again. I've kind of replaced my whole studio with this thing. I'll show you. OP1.
You got an OP1. Excellent. What's that got plastic on it? What's the plastic doing on it?
That's so that I don't get the keys sticky.
Wow. Isn't that a bit like having a sofa and leaving the having the vinyl on it?
Yeah, it really is, and that's me pretty much.
So you want to keep it? You want to keep that?
I never take the Sony stickers off things. I leave them on forever.
Are you enjoying that though?
This thing comes up with sounds that I mean, I can't even explain it. People like, there's a big controversy online. People think, oh, it's a toy. It's an overpriced toy. You're an idiot for using that. But, there's just, Tinley would have a ball with it. It's got crazy algorithms in there, and you just keep discovering funny, interesting ways of manipulating things that are different. Like they have shapes, for instance, Tinley, like, and you drop like balls into the shapes, and the shapes spin around, and they become notes, and you can make the ball turn into a hexagon or open up a few of the doors and let some of the balls escape. It's just a different way of...
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that. I know how you think. Yeah. I mean,
it is a great thing. I did review it when it came out. Fortunately, we got hold of one of the early ones and I managed to get a review in. And that honestly, that has had on YouTube hundreds of thousands of views just because it's such an eye-catching thing.
There's people making like records on the thing. The 4-track, it's got a 4-track analog sounding recorder in it, and you know how it works. It's just you can bounce things, and there's a beat match function where you can actually do the tape to tape speed at halftime, so you can do those like George Martin-esque piano runs like at
cool.
double speed, and just there's some monkeys in there who like to come up with their own rhythms. You put on the monkeys, and it's just,
so is this going to be something? Are we going to see an album? Your next project? Are you looking for work as an OP1 producer?
Oh well, I mean, I tend to use a little bit of it in things. I mean, but it's like a hard drive. You can drag any AIF sound onto it and manipulate it. So it becomes, once it goes into the OP1 world, there's all these tools on this thing, and I keep finding new combinations. And but I was going to show you the monkeys really quick because the monkeys are just really, really fun. Let's do. There we go. Here's the monkeys.
Along the same lines as give the monkey a typewriter and you'll get the complete works of Shakespeare.
Their graphics are fantastic.
Brilliant.
Monkey drummers. Let's hear it for the monkey drummers.
I mean, some of the TV Mania music making devices were toys anyway, weren't they? So,
definitely.
I think bringing toys into music is always a good thing, personally.
Yeah, they're all over here. I have toy pianos and toy guitars. I have a song called "Love Is a Twisted Melancholy Disease." Pretty cool, and you can. I have an alter ego, Ajax Rayovac, and I play this Fisher Price guitar.
Oh,
if you look, it's a marvelous little instrument, and if you look up Ajax Rayovac, "Love Is a Twisted Melancholy Disease," you'll see the guitar. It's fabulous. Toys are just joyous in music. My little guy, I have a 1-year-old, he gets these shakers from people, and I'm like, I steal them, bring them to the studio. They're like better than the shakers you can buy in the music store.
Oh, they're like things. I'm just looking here. I'm looking for the guitar. Oh, here we go. If I can switch it in, you can see it quickly. Where's that guitar? There we go. Is that the Fisher Price guitar right there?
Yeah.
There it is. Excellent.
That's how I figured out love is.
Makes you look so giant as well. There's a sort of the giant guitarist doing his rock thing. This is a great fun discussion. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else we need to cover from the actual kind of TV Mania point of view. Apart from the fact you can go and get it. You can get it at tvmaniamusic.com. There's links there to do it. I think I've actually got the
I think there's a video for Euphoria on YouTube.
Is there?
Now
Is
as
it out
well.
yet?
Oh, I didn't know that. I was looking
I think
for something.
it is out.
Oh, okay.
I think they put it out yesterday because I saw it float by on.
Not out yet. That's one of the samples from the album.
Oh, hold
I
on,
saw
let me
it
see.
float by on Twitter, but then Andrew might have accidentally released it, in which case you can go and watch it quick before he gets told off and they have to take it off
TV
again.
Mania, board Prozac. I can't see it yet. No, not yet.
No?
And I was looking, there's some interesting stuff about what they're doing, some remixes and kind of franchise. There's that thing. Maybe we should do a bit of chat about that, because that's, let's have a look. Where's it got? Franchise here.
Beatport. On Beatport.
Ah, okay. But there's, you can basically, I think the idea is,
I get it.
you can actually be part of the TV Mania. You'll see the manifesto, toolkit full of samples of loops, some design items that you can use to create your own version of TV Mania for your location. Looking for advanced users, musicians, producers, DJs to submit their version of TV Mania, which are then picked to showcase to the world. So I'm guessing it's like a kind of remix competition dressed up with a bit of art by the sounds of it. But it sounds like a great idea.
which is where the Sonic State listener comes in. So you, the Sonic State listener, are being invited to come and play with this thing. Because, I mean, they're kind of, we're looking for people who are specifically good at this sort of thing. So the franchise pack is going to have like some artwork in it, and it's going to have some samples in it and some stems so you can create songs. But the whole idea of it is that you get to be TV Mania. So instead of like doing a remix for the band, you get to be the band. You get to be a franchised version of the band. So I've taken TV Mania Cambridge, the home of high fidelity audio, and I'm going to be doing some very high fidelity TV Mania. But of course, you could take, I don't know, whatever you want to take, like TV Mania Hawaii or whatever's available.
Oh,
whatever
that's an interesting idea. That's a great idea.
Take the packs. There's a manifesto which gives you some instructions about what to do, and then you submit your music to the franchise, and you get your franchise, and you get to call yourself TV Mania. That's the idea, anyway.
Ah, brilliant! Right, we've just lost Anthony a moment. He's coming back now. So where you need to go for that is tvmaniamusic.com/franchise, and that's how you get it. So yes, do check that out. That's a very interesting idea, and it sounds like it could be fun. Is there money in it, or is it more for the fame and glory?
I've no idea.
Yeah, we don't know.
I've never been paid.
Fame and glory.
No, that's not strictly true.
So, Anthony, what do you think the chances are of actually being able to unplug your laptop and take us a little tour of your studio as a sort of as a parting shot, maybe to close up?
I'd love to do that, except for a second ago, that was the sound of me disappearing was my battery dying. So, like, I can get a little bit of a.
Okay.
Because now I'm back on power, but see how far I can get with this thing. I just stepped on a ukulele.
Oh, no.
That's all right.
Whenever I see pictures of you on Facebook, Anthony, you're always on your knees on the floor, surrounded by all these colourful
look at all
pedals.
these. This is just one area of pedals.
I'm so pleased to see that somebody has a more messy studio than I do.
Oh, my God. Well, it comes and goes. Then I'll have an important meeting, and it'll look perfect for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. You need a big curtain you can just swipe across.
Yeah. There's another station over there, so that's the B rig over there, and then the main rig is over here, and then I've got
a lovely space.
The D rig is over here in the kitchen.
So I don't know if you swing around and show us the desk again.
This is the main rig there, and then I've got and this is where I've been doing my guitar stuff in this world here. I got a OP1, a pocket piano,
Chaos pad, a load of things.
Yeah, Chaos pad, and a bunch of stuff. Couple of little amplifiers. We got loads of amps, like a lot of vintage amps and stuff. And then if you look way down there, you can see all the guitars. Some of the guitars.
Okay.
Down the other end.
You can always go to Bopnik Music. Bopnik, which I'm trying to find now. There was. I think I lost my. If I go back here, it might show up because I did it as a. I had it as a page up, and then it's gone. I think we just lost. I think the power must have come out. So maybe what's going to happen is when we get Anthony back, we can say goodbye because we got a lot of. I thought this was going to be just a brief chat, but it's turned into a fantastic bit of content, and I very much appreciate you giving your time this generously. I know. I
love it. I'd love to share music and ideas, and we do workshops and. I'm always game for any kind of.
Well, it sounds. I mean, maybe sometime in the future you care to come on the show again as a regular guest and just sort of comment on. That's the way we do things. It's the way we roll, man. But thank you very much, Anthony. That's absolutely fantastic. So Anthony J. Resta, there you can find him at bopnik.com. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Tinley, it's great to see you again, man.
Yeah, and you, yeah.
And speaking of Tinley, there's Mark Tinley, likebeing.com. Both of these guys are, you can get their stuff at tvmaniamusic.com. This is where the final release has. But obviously, both of them have been working on lots of other stuff in the meantime. It's not just about that. I'm guessing, Anthony, you probably have you got a project on the go at the moment that you can talk about?
I've got a bunch of different things going. I kind of I have a SoundCloud, just SoundCloud/Ajax, and I put up stuff every week. I mean, we're here 6 days a week. I'm traveling. I've got a bunch of different. My head spins because I can't keep up with it all.
That's good. That's great.
Several album projects and film. I'm getting into film composing. I'm working on a full-length animated movie about robots destroying each other in space and like lots of blood and guts and all kinds of good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. It's been a great pleasure. That was Sonic Talk number 300.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored. Take care, guys.
See you later.
Bye, Tinley.
Cheerio.
Okay, I'm just going to